Yeah, that's right. But he has shifted now to doctor. So he's working.
I guess I could say a few words.
Okay.
Then what you see, and then you stand here and give you a presentation.
Great, okay. Yeah. Not trøkt. Okay, President, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it's a great honor to welcome you to this lecture at the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs, given by the President of Mongolia, His Excellency Tsakhia Elbegdorj. I don't know how to pronounce your name, so Elbegdorj? Elbegdorj. Sorry. The President is on his first visit to Norway, I believe, and one of the purposes of this state visit is to exchange views and competences regarding management of natural resources and good governance. In addition, such a visit is also an opportunity to explore business opportunities and of mutual interest. Now, this visit is also, of course, an opportunity for us in Norway to learn more about Mongolia. This is a large country most of us have heard about, a few have visited. We all heard about Genghis Khan, and who ruled an enormous empire. And I've been told that around 1.5% of the male population in the world he says his grandfather, grandfather. Living today. I don't know if it's true, but it was a paper published in Science on this. In terms of population, Mongolia is small. It's actually even smaller than Norway. But the geographical outreach is enormous. In terms of location, it's of great strategic importance. It's a landlocked country between China and Russia. And the country has gold and uranium and all kinds of minerals you can imagine, rare metals. And during the last year, the mineral extraction in Mongolia has led the country to a rapid growth and increased its strategic importance. Our institute follows, of course, current global politics, and as the world changes, we change our research agenda. So we are therefore strengthening our research on the Russia Far East and the research on developments in Asia. And it's therefore very fitting that you could visit NUPI. And the title of the lecture today is Mongolia's Democratic Development, Challenges and Lessons. And the President will share with you some thoughts about democracy, human rights, anti-corruption, etc. And also in this area, Mongolia has a very fascinating history of peaceful transition, and the President has played a key role in this transition. In his youth, the President was an activist. In 1989, he quit his job in the military and founded Mongolia's first independent newspaper called Democracy. He became an important player in the peaceful democratic transition that ended the 70-year-long communist rule in the country. In 1990, he was a member of the parliament and co-drafted the new Mongolian constitution. And at the age of 41, it's quite impressive, he became Prime Minister of Mongolia in 2004. And then he became a President of Mongolia in 2009. And in between all of these things, he wrote his, he completed a master's degree in public administration from Harvard, the Harvard Kennedy School of Government, and he's also a father of 5. And I think more than 2 dozen the orphans that you are a father for. Yeah. So that's quite impressive. So, President, it's a great honor for our institute to have you here, and I look forward to hear your remarks. So, please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Yeah, I think your podium is for the tall men, yeah, tall guys. Yeah, thank you very much. You know, this is a really great honor to meet you and to talk about my country and give some flavor about Mongolia. And I would like to start my talk from what we are doing since 1989. Before that, I think as director mentioned that Mongolia, one time actually we built the largest land empire ever existed in the world. And I hope you heard about the Genghis Khan and Kublai Khan. And one thing Genghis Khan said that is I think is still relevant today. He actually said that it was easy to conquer the world on the horseback. What's challenging is to dismount and try to govern. I think this is still the case, and even that great king actually conquered the half of the world. He did not erect to himself a single statue. I think he actually ruled his empire under written law called Great Government. And also Mongolian Empire was tolerant to the religious belief. And also they introduced a great network and called Pony type of express messenger system, which actually lasted for 700 years. During that time, from Mongolian capital Karakorum to Beijing, actually that Pony Express system took to bring the kings and Han's messages only 1 week. I think during that time, horse speed was the main determinant of that network. Means that Mongolia during that time actually controlled that speed. Today is like equivalent to the internet. Also, Mongolians introduced many new things during that time, paper money. And also Kublai Khan ruled the Yuan dynasty, and he actually created that dynasty, and you know that. And since then, Mongolia became the satellite country under the Manchu Empire for almost 300 years. And since 1920s, Mongolia became the second communist country after Russia. And we remained under communism for 70 years. In a cold winter, since cold winter in 1989, actually we started the democratic transition in Mongolia. During that time, Soviet Union was intact, and beginning that transition between People's Republic of China and the Soviet Union was quite a challenge for us, and we actually made that transition. We call it democratic revolution in Mongolia during 1990. That democratic revolution actually took place in Mongolia by the peaceful means. There was no single window was shattered, no single drop of blood was shed. And also that transition was the dual transition, political and economic transition. Still today, many people argue that that's not common in Asia, making dual transition, political transition and economic transition. But we managed to do that at the same time. And we actually broke that kind of old stereotype things, It cannot be, it cannot happen in Asia. And I think human rights, democracy, and rule of law, transparency, those are the values can be enjoyed everywhere in the world, even in a poor country, even between Russia and China. And I think that's the one thing we're really proud of that. Before 1990, 99% of our economy was produced by the state-owned productions, and now more than 70% of our GDP actually produced by private enterprises. Since June 1990, we had 7 times parliamentary elections. Also, one thing that especially in Mongolia, we actually introduced parliamentary type of power in our country. most of the republics from the Soviet Union, actually, they choose presidential type of power. They became the more autocratic. But in Mongolia, we introduced the parliamentary type of power. And myself, I was born in a herdsman family. I'm the youngest of 8 sons in my family. I was born from our capital city, 1,300 kilometers away. And I knew how to how was our parents' life, and their herd and sheep were the properties of the Soviet type of kolkhoz system. In order to slaughter one sheep, they had to get the permission from the kolkhoz director. But after 1990, we introduced broad privatization, and now we got around 50 million cattle in Mongolia. In Mongolia, we have roughly 3 million people, 50 million cattle, and 1.5 million square kilometer land. And you know that Mongolia is one of the, I think not one of the most sparsely populated country in the world. In 1 square kilometer land, we have around two persons. Now, my country regarded economically fastest growing economy in the world, and also Mongolia is regarded the democratic anchor in the East. And I usually say that we're actually proud of our democratic achievements, and I usually say that Mongolian democracy is not foreign transplant. This is actually our democracy, is our wealth, which was created by the perseverance, by hard work of our people for 23 years. And that democratic example actually shines quite a long way, sheds the light for the quite long way. And there are many countries actually interested in our transition. For example, last year we had several delegation from the Kyrgyzstan. They are now studying in Mongolian way, Mongolian experience, how to introduce in a country's parliamentary type of power. And when the Rosa Otunbayeva was the president, actually she asked me to receive their delegation and also to work together on their on their draft of their constitution. Actually, we work together. I think now Kyrgyzstan is following our footstep. And usually, I think from the Eastern countries, I think in near future they will shift to the semi-parliamentary type of power, and through that they may become more. They may liberalize their political system. And in that regard, I think Mongolia can be a great example to those countries. Also, what kind of challenges we are actually facing? I think there are mainly three main challenges, I may say that. And one is how to share that wealth which we are receiving from the mineral development in Mongolia. That's one of the biggest challenge, and also one of the main reasons why I am visiting today Norway. And we know that you guys superbly managed your wealth coming from the oil and other mineral resources in Norway. In Mongolia, usually when we talk about the best experiences, we usually talk about Norway. And today we really need that connection, and you have a great image as a country in Mongolia. And of course, Mongolian public has some kind of things, they disbelief in their government. Maybe these guys, Mongolian government, are messing up, those governance issues related with the mineral wealth. If we introduce Norwegian way, how they did manage it, their wealth, I think Mongolia can be a better country. And because of that, during my meeting with your foreign minister, with your prime minister, I think we will continue to talk, and I hope we will have some assistance from Norwegian side, and also to have your best experiences in Mongolia. And also in Mongolia, we are now, in the initial level, we are founding the sovereign wealth fund system in Mongolia. Other challenge related with the justice, rule of law. I usually say to my countrymen that if you got the resource-rich economy plus bad governance, country in trouble. Country gonna be in trouble, and because of that, we have to pay attention to our government and to reform our judiciary system. Still in Mongolia, we have a Soviet type of judiciary system, remnants of the Soviet type of judiciary system, which serves the power, not serving the people. And we have to reverse that. In order to do that, I think we need to reform our legal system. I already introduced more than 20 laws related with the judiciary system, 20 laws. And I got already half of them from our parliament, and half of them we are expecting to pass by our parliament. After passing that, I think we will put that in effect. And when there is legal framework in place, we will change structurally our judiciary system, I mean police system, prosecutor system, and also court system in Mongolia and attorney system. And we will change everything. After that, we will deal with the personal issues. And one biggest challenge in my country actually to make that changes, I think changing the mindset is most difficult thing. I think you can change your countries politically and economically, but changing the mindset, which formed under the communist rule for 70 years, for 3 generations, that's quite a challenging task, and because of that, we spend almost more than 20 years to introducing these liberal ideas and those values, how to change. I think now our public, our community actually received that message, and now they are ready for big changes in my country. Secondly, third issue, how to protect our environment. We have a very fragile environment in Mongolia. Around 40% of our population is still pursuing the nomadic way of life. Mongolians have a most suitable, most friendly way of living in terms of the environment, most harmonical way to the environment, but Mongolia is suffering most from the climate change. I think because of our location in dry area, speed of the climate change and global warming having the 2 times faster pace than world average. 70% of our territory now under desertification, and because of that, we have to pay to that. And also there is great development of mining. Last 20 years, one of the 4 rivers, one of the 4 wetlands, one of the 4 lakes actually dried out. And because of that, we have to pay greater attention to our environment. And we are doing some jobs and some initiatives there. Also, I think climate change happened because of the human activity. We can turn that thing also with the greater involvement human being, and I believe in that, and that's the one issue in Mongolia. Other thing, I think Mongolia has a greater opportunity in terms of the renewable energy. In Mongolia, we have more than 300 days, sunny days per year, and because of our Gobi, if we put the solar battery in our Gobi area, we can today supply equal energy which today uses China. If we add to that wind energy, I think we can supply equal energy which uses the Asia and Pacific region as a together. And that's one area we can cooperate together with Norway. Other thing I would like to mention in terms of the democracy things, I really believe that in a power of freedom, and why I believe in a power of freedom, when the people get free, I think they usually tend to make better decisions and responsible decisions, and they usually become more creative. I think because of that, country's prosperity actually comes from the freedom. And also one of the high priority we are putting on human rights, on the rule of law things. I told you that when I became president, I announced a moratorium on death penalty. Mongolia was one of the 3 worst case scenario country in terms of the death penalty. We were equal to the North Korea and Belarus and Mongolia. And I think that was the one of the issues you have to exercise your leadership. And since June 2009, there was no single execution in Mongolia. And we have an effective moratorium on that. I think that actually government is created by the people. I think government has no right to take a life of your creator. I know that capital punishment is barbaric, capital punishment is bad, and the sanctity of the human life, human dignity is high priority. If you would like to exercise, rule of law and just system, you have to begin from that. And that is one of our policies. 23 years ago, Mongolia had a similar political and economic system like today North Korea has. But 23 years after today, Mongolia is chairman of the Community of Democracies. And 23 years after 2,000 years, Mongolia is the leader of the global movement for freedom. And I think this is one of the impressive achievements in our country. And one thing I would like to mention that also we gave greater emphasis on the women leadership in my country, and I support that. In the last parliamentary election, actually the number of the women members in our parliament tripled. That was quite an achievement, and I usually say that women usually tend to see things in a big picture. If woman enters to the household, if there is child hungry, she will not sit. If there is old man, needs some tea, she will not sit. But men sometimes, do not see it. Because of that, I think everywhere, in every institutions, in a government level, parliament level, in organization level, we have to support women in order to succeed as a country. If you would like to succeed as a country, as a together, you have to support women, and that's one of the policies in my country we are exercise. And from the geopolitical issues, I would like to say that many people usually ask questions how small Mongolia is surviving between 2 giant countries. There is Russian Federation and China. Between them, there is green things, actually Mongolia. And I usually identify my country as a freedom-loving pony between 2 big elephants. But one time Mongolia was big elephant, of course. And I usually answer to that question, we used to exist, we used to live next to each other for centuries, 4,000 years, and there is already established mechanism for centuries. And because of that, there is no big problem living between 2 giant countries. And Mongolia's position is really strategic position. We share longest land border with China, most important economy in the world. 4,700 kilometer long border we share with China. And because of that, Mongolia has become one of the hottest spots for the investors. I think Mongolia has most of those mineral resources, mineral things in Mongolia which needed in China. And we have a big mining related with the copper and coal and uranium, rare earth, and other things. And of course, we need to process our mining wealth in my country. That's the one important thing. I see that many people ask questions related with China, how China will develop, how Chinese political life will change with the new leadership. And I usually say that there are maybe three scenarios. You know, China may continue its today's status quo for a while, for the duration of the new leadership. And maybe there might be second scenario, might be some initiatives from the top. I think Chinese Communist Party may initiate some reforms, some even political reforms, or other scenario, of course, from the bottom-up scenario. Maybe there might be some mix of those things. And in relation of the North Korea, actually, I mentioned that Mongolia has a unique insights in terms of the North Korean development. Because of that, because we have there our embassy and long-standing relations with North Korea, and we have some ideas how should North Korea should go further, and how that country can make some reforms there. And I hope now you may ask questions, and I would like to answer to your questions. And thank you for your attention. Great. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, President, for a very nice, interesting lecture. Now we give the floor. Is it so that you have a microphone? Yes. Please identify yourself, and this gentleman here.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. It's a very nice speech you have, and I've been to your country many times, and I love your country, and especially the horseback country. It's one of the best and most beautiful countries in the world.
Yeah. Could you just identify yourself?
Yeah, my name is Toyn Allan. I'm from Bike for Peace. I've been biking from Ulaanbaatar to Beijing once. That was a great bike through the Gobi. But now I go to the political question, because I love your country so much. I was there on the 1st of July 2008, and there was a big demonstration. The stone was through our head, and 5 people was killed. Was that because of much of the money went out of the country from the big international companies? Was that one of the reasons the big demonstration, or is that so much corruption in your government? That's the first question. The second question is about, do you know no more military bases in your country? As you had before, you had Russian bases. Do you now have no more military bases like the American, and so on? Or the third things, you have signed, I think, the treaty that you not want to have any nuclear weapon on your territory. Free question. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. First, start from the horse issues, of course. You know, there is the only country in the world that we have more horses than people. If you would like to go to see a country which is really nice and open space, when you travel for 300 or 500 kilometers, no fence, I think that's the place. That's the country to go. And also, I really like my country, because every morning, only country in the world, also 300 men on horseback. That's the one culture. Horse culture is big thing in Mongolia. Related with the 2008 election issue, and that thing happened in Mongolia. In 2008, in June, we had parliamentary elections, and that unfortunate thing happened in Mongolia. And that was only purely disputed parliamentary elections. And there were the big fraud. I think our people, not only they are learning good things for democracy, also they are learning bad things, how to cheat, on the votes, how to make that fraud in Mongolia. And also there are some foreign advisors, and because of that, you can, I think, even Stalin say that you can have an election, I think, just control the result. And because of that, in Mongolia, we had some bad experiences with the election, And because of that, we had that unfortunate incident happen in Mongolia, and we learned from our experiences. I usually say that democracy is, if I say that democracy is a learning process, that's just I think if you make in Mongolia mistake, I think we usually make big mistakes in Mongolia, but that became the good lessons for us. In a closed society, if you make mistakes, it's gonna be, sometimes it might be your last mistake. And the beauty of freedom, beauty of democracy, I think you can learn from your mistakes. And we got our lessons from that unfortunate incident in Mongolia. And last election, this June's election, we used computer system. In Mongolia, even in remote areas, there were the scanning system. And no longer we use the wooden box and paper, and we use that scanning system in Mongolia nationwide, and we got, I think, much better election result, much fair election result, and most of our people, 90% of our voters, believe it, that was the clear and much better the election result, and because of that, in this June we transferred our power from one party to another party within 1 week. There was no incident, there was no big meetings, there was no violence. And we are learning from that. And I think Mongolia is only the second country in Asia using that network, computer and scanning system. And that actually makes our election more fair. Other thing, second question related with the military base. Before 1990, we had one of the biggest military bases from the Soviet Union. And I actually studied in Soviet Union in military academy for 5 years, majoring in journalism. And there is no plan to bring other countries' military bases to Mongolia. There is no plan that actually prohibited by law. And you asked about the nuclear waste issue, and I made that announcement of our country's will that Mongolia is not going to receive single ounce of the nuclear waste in Mongolia, and that's also our position. And also this year we celebrated 20 years of the nuclear-free weapon zone status, and we actually initiated that status, and there are UN several resolutions actually supported our initiative. I think Mongolia will be nuclear weapon-free zone. Okay.
Anders.
My name is Anders Sjåstad from NUPI. I've also had the privilege of visiting your country, and I greatly enjoyed it. You have talked about the delicate balance between Russia and China. There are at least two more important players in East Asian politics, and that is Japan and the United States. Would you care to say a few words about your relations with them and what you hope from them? Thank you.
Japan was the biggest donor since the 1990. And during socialist time, we had almost 90% of our economic relations and trade relations were with Soviet Union. When Soviet Union collapsed, we faced very difficult situation in Mongolia. But when Soviet Union collapsed, thanks to our historic choice of our people for democracy, we got many friends. We became the member country for the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, and already we formed that during that time the donor countries convention in Mongolia. And because of that, we got our friends. I think Japan was one of the main countries, major donor for Mongolia, and still now that relations became for more the investment relation, win-win relation. Before that, we had a greater assistance from Japan. And in terms of the United States, in June 1990, James Baker, when he was the Secretary of State, actually he was the first highest-ranking visitor to Mongolia to coming from the West. And he actually said that, you know, you have two neighbors, and the United States of America want to be your third neighbor. We actually like that concept, and we use that concept in our foreign policy. We regard all other countries our third neighbor. And also with the regard the United States, also we have a common shared strategic interest and values in the face of the democracy, in the face of the freedom. Not only we have that values, we are working together for that values, spreading that values throughout the world and protecting that values. You know, Mongolia was one of the coalition-willing partner countries. Our men and women in uniform served. 3,000 of them served in Iraq. Now there are also serving in Afghanistan. Mongolia is one of the 20 countries, big peacekeepers contributing country in the world. And we now I think we are working how to embrace our economic relations, how to expand our economic relations. Usually we say that, of course, our two big neighbors have a big economic interest in Mongolia. We really need to balance those economic investments in Mongolia. Because of that, we need third-party investment in Mongolia. And that's really, really important. Yeah.
My name is Indra Overland. I'm the head of the energy program and the acting head of the Department of Russian Eurasian Studies here at NUPI. Thank you for an excellent and very interesting presentation. And there are two things I would like to ask about. As many people probably know, Russia and China have been negotiating for a very long time, trying to reach an understanding on pricing of natural gas to build a natural gas pipeline. And I guess sooner or later this is going to happen. What do you think are the prospects for this pipeline crossing Mongolia? And the second question is, you mentioned that Mongolia has some contacts with North Korea. We seem to see some signals of a possible opening up in North Korea. What is your expectations? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. On the pipeline issue, our government policy is very clear, and Mongolia wants to take part of the regional energy infrastructure building. And if pipeline goes through Mongolia from Russia to China, it actually will save more than 1,000 kilometers. And economically, that's beneficial for Mongolia and for China and for Russia. And we ask them to put that pipeline through Mongolia. And we usually say that Mongolia wanted to be a responsible neighbor, you know. We would like to take part in this development. And now, of course, first the responses were maybe reluctant, and now I think government of Russia and China, they agreed to study that possibility, and now we are creating the working group and to make that study. And one day, I really believe that that pipeline may run through Mongolian territory, and we will guarantee the safety and all the regulations for that. 100% you will. You asked the North Korean issue, yeah? No, I think North Korea actually is stuck with the political and their economic establishment at the level of the 1950s. I think during the Stalinist time. With that, and I had a pleasure to visit North Korea in 1999, and I spent 10 days there. And I saw what kind of changes happened in Mongolia, and also what is going on in North Korea. And I tried to persuade North Korean leaders during that time. There is other way, you know. You can make other choices. Your people can benefit from that. You know, there is no way Americans going to invade your country, or you know. Or there are the whole world hostile towards North Korea, and actually the whole world wants to help to those people in North Korea. And in terms of the opening in North Korea, I think you know that China is the major player in this issue, and now China is pushing for some extent, some economic liberalization. Why? Because China is giving big assistance to North Korea, and there is no return. I think they're using that assistance in their military, expanding their military capability, not expanding their economic capacity. Because of that, I think China is pushing for that. And last incident which happened with the general, I think second in command, this new leader, I think he actually persuaded, or he wants to make some liberal movement, some kind of first liberal movements, economic liberal movements in North Korea, but that actually contradicts with the military. And you know that North Korea puts the military in the first place. Now that new leader wants to put economy maybe in the first place. That actually contradicting with the military rule and the old ruling elite. And because of that, there was the shootings and with that general bodyguard, and all those bodyguards were killed, and general actually injured. And we know that and that incident happened. At least that new leader want to put economic importance equal to the military importance. You know, that should be. I think that's maybe a good sign. But in Mongolia, we have our joint government commission. One year we go to have meeting in Pyongyang. Other year they come to Mongolia to have meeting in Ulaanbaatar. And usually those delegations see what kind of changes happening in Mongolia. They really interest how did you manage that economic transition. Also they interest are those the communist leaders are alive or not. And of course, we say that they are alive, and that Communist Party is still in existence. They call themselves Social Democratic Party. I think they sometimes that for our former Communist Party won one time in the elections 95% of seats in the parliament. I usually say even Kim Jong-il would agree to that if the North Korean Labour Party is going to win 95%. You know, while they have democratic elections. They would agree on that. You know, those kind of developments can happen, and those people who come to Mongolia, I think those are the kind of eye-opening experience for them. And we invite more young people, more students to Mongolia. Also, there are some more workforce in Mongolia. There are some border crossings from China through Mongolia, and we help them to go to the safer place.
I come from Finland and I work for the Finnish Yleisradio, the public service company. And I was visiting Mongolia, in fact, last year when our president, Madame President, as you called her,
yes,
Tarja Halonen, was in Ulaanbaatar with a big delegation. And just in the beginning of September, I made a new program to check up what's happened in a year. And I can tell you, everybody in Finland I was talking to said, good news, good news, good news. This cooperation is really functioning well. And I hope that you think the same in Mongolia. But then one other thing that I was interested in when I was there was the situation of the women. And I also heard, when I was in Mongolia a year ago, I think you had 2 women in your parliament.
Now we got 9 women.
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what I heard. So it's true. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Yeah. So you still, you know, the women's situation is getting better all the time?
Getting better.
Yeah. How do you make it?
9 of them, you know.
How do you do? What kind of programs do you have for that?
Oh, you know, we put the quota system there. And also now we're exercising that quota system in the local elections. You know, really amazing things happening in Mongolia. Every 2 years, our economy is doubling. And 10 years ago, we had a $1 billion economy. After 10 years, now we have $11 billion economy. 10 years ago, we had a $300 million foreign assistance. Today, that foreign assistance remained at the same level after 10 years. Means that 10 years ago there was foreign assistance 30% of our economy, now 3% of our economy. But other relations, of course, investment. Means that I think Mongolia is a great place to invest and also to develop the mutually beneficial relations, and also great hub for Russia to go, and also great hub for China, for Eastern countries, for North Korea, for Southeast Asia. I think I really try to persuade your institute to go there and to have partner in Mongolia to make a study in our region. I think that's the place to locate and to make good study and good investment.
Can I one question more in, because this is, it's what I know about Mongolia, it's almost too good to be true, but I've seen some of it myself, so I do believe you. But I also heard, I was making a program about South Africa when they had the massacre on just in August, and then I was in contact with businessmen in Finland who are making business with these companies, mining companies in South Africa, and they told me, and they are really not, they make business with anybody, I think. But they said that in Africa nowadays, they feel that people are, many states are starting to look upon Mongolia as a good example of how to leave your developing status and become a developed country. So that you can really decide about your resources yourself, and not only let the big, like Chinese and US, German companies take all the part of it. Can this be that you will have a role for the developing countries in the world, how to get out of this depending situation?
Yeah. I believe in my country's future. Why? Our country's future in our people's hand. I usually say that there are many countries which endowed with the natural resources, many of them failed. Few of them succeeded. And there is trend why there are few of them succeeding. Those succeeding countries are actually open countries. I usually say that Norway is an open country, Australia is an open country, Canada is an open country with the natural resources, and we regard Mongolia as an open country. Open means that our country's future, our country's choice in our people's hands. If government make bad decisions, I think our people have a power to change that, to fix that. I think people are wiser than the government, and because of that, I think we will follow that good faith of the development, and because of that, I really believe in my country's future, and we have to protect that openness, we have to protect that transparency, and we have to protect rule of law in my country. Yeah. That will
I have
determine.
several people on my list, so maybe I should just collect a few questions. First you, and then over here.
Good morning, Mr. President. My name is Gert Daniels, and I'm from the United Nations Development Programme's Good Governance Centre here in Oslo. And I'm very pleased to hear about your potential plans for renewable energy, especially reflecting the priorities of the Secretary General at the recent General Assembly opening. And I was wondering also, with the extraction industry in Mongolia, what are your concrete plans for sustainable development, where you combine poverty reduction with also taking care of the environment? Thank you.
In 2005, we actually joined the initiative called Extractive Transparency Initiative. And there are now joined, so far there is 36 countries, and Mongolia is one of the top 3 countries in terms of the exercising their duties in line with the standards of the industry, extractive industry transparency initiative. And today I had a breakfast meeting with the secretariat of that initiative, and I think there are of course challenges, but one thing is in the world is good, because of the information network, because of the internet. If you would like to really learn things, you can sit and open and type that word which you interest in, you may get good answers and good expertise. You don't need to go to study Harvard or make research there. But that's the one of the beauty in Mongolia, and also that actually changing our country's lifestyle and people's lifestyle. For example, 100,000 kilometers away, horsemen actually calling in Mongolia to the Ulaanbaatar, to the capital city, and every morning asking what is the Kashmir price in the Ulaanbaatar market on his phone. Herdsmen. And today our herdsmen enjoying putting their solar panel and also a small wind generator and having the TV stations and communicating with the world and internet access. And I think that actually changing the country's face, and that's the beauty of the technology. And in Mongolia, there is no single censorship on website, on radio, on TV stations, and we have a most independent, free media, and most grassrooted civil, education and movement in Mongolia. And because of that, I think destiny of our open development is in a good hand. Yeah.
Okay, now we have quite a lot of people, and we only have 7 minutes or something. So you had asked for, and then you, and then you, and then Roman, and then in the back there. But is it okay for you if you collect all 4 of them?
Okay.
Or should we try two and two? Okay, go ahead, please.
Hello, my name is Christian Kjellstrup. I'm a journalist, and I had the great pleasure of interviewing the president about 1 year ago in Ulaanbaatar. And one of the key challenges you identified then for Mongolia, and you repeated today, was how you should take maximum use of your wealth and distribute it so that it should reach your people in the best way. Could you go a little more into details about what steps you've taken the last year to achieve this goal, and what insights you hope to gain in Norway in this field? Thank you.
I think there are in 2 fronts actually we are working. One front, I told you, that reforming our judiciary system, really planting that value related with the rule of law, and other front, learning from others and bringing those best expertise to Mongolia. And one thing, of course, Norway has the best expertise related with the Norwegian pension fund global, and we would like to cooperate. And I think we are making greater progress in Mongolia in terms of the openness and transparency. And I think I really invite you were there in Mongolia 1 year ago. If you go now to Mongolia, I think you will notice the changes. You will notice those changes. And now I think I'm more hopeful that we got good parliament in Mongolia, because there is a non-party domination. There is no party get majority seats in the parliament, and because of that, we formed just newly coalition government in Mongolia, which is new in my country. And if we introduce good policy to our parliament, I think we will get the good laws, good regulations there. And in terms of the rule of law and fighting corruption, I think people are really encouraged. There are more than 20 high-profile corruption cases already in Mongolia. Also, half of them was in a court. Of course, final say is from the court, and because of that, I think little get encouraged. If that high-profile person in jail or under investigation, we will have more perspective to live ruled by law in a society. And those are one of the developments. And I think there are many good developments in Mongolia. Okay, I'll try to be very short. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. President, Odd Georg Murd is my name, and I follow people to Mongolia 3 times. I have done, and I'm very happy of the Mongolian culture. Singers, throat singers, special. In a little Norwegian church, I had a great thing there. 4 singers from they came up from Germany, but they were Mongolians. And in a bigger scale, is it a hope for us to that you can bring us some of your singers and other actors in Mongolia to us? We hope. We hope.
Thank you.
That's not a question. It's
That was your request. Yeah. Good question.
Mr. President, my name is Roman Vakulchuk. I'm a guest researcher at the Norwegian Institute of International Affairs, and I'm from Kazakhstan. Well, thank you very much, first of all, for your very interesting and inspiring speech. And well, since I'm Kazakhstan, I'd like to ask you the question concerning the relations of Mongolia with Kazakhstan. Well, it's quite obvious that both countries exhibit very similar features in terms of low density of population, in terms of sharing common culture, also history. And also Kazakhstan, as Mongolia, as you just mentioned, is also very keen on learning from the very successful Norwegian experience in terms of managing its natural resources. So my question is, how would you characterize current relations between Mongolia and Kazakhstan? And do you think that, for example, in terms of economic cooperation and the, say, trade turnover is large enough, or there is still more room for improvement? Also, in terms of potential challenges that both countries might face, do you seek to foster cooperation, and how does it look like? Thank you.
President.
Yeah. Okay.
Could you kind of remember the Kazakhstan question, and then I take one final question, because I think we're running a bit late.
Yes, Mr. President, my name is Anders Oskal. I work for the International Center for Reindeer Husbandry. Now, as is known, Mongolia is also a reindeer herding country. Mongolia is also a country that has a very rich nomad or pastoralism. And in one way, we think one of the true strengths is that you have been able to divide the country without borders in line with pastoralist principles. At the same time, we see in Mongolian media that some people are stating that Mongolia needs to get rid of its pastoral history. It is somehow in opposition to modernization. Perhaps you could comment on that. And secondly, I would also ask if you could elaborate on minority issues in Mongolia, how they are handled, what are the states. Thank you.
Thank you. One question related with the Kazakhstan. You know, Mongolia, 90% of Mongolians are the Mongols, and 10% of our population is Kazakh people. And because of that, we have a very special relations with Kazakhstan. And that's one thing. In terms of the political liberalization, of course, Mongolia is ahead of the Kazakhstan. I usually say that in terms of the political liberalization and economic social liberalization, now those bumpy roads actually behind of us in Mongolia, but in terms of the Kazakhstan, maybe in front of them. That's the maybe main difference. But I usually say to my friends, to Eastern countries, we do not have anything to teach to them, but we have something to share with them. And when their delegation come to Mongolia, I usually call them, please make a study not only on our successes, please make a study also on our failures. And they usually get good lessons. In front of that, I think in terms of that policy, we would like to have engaged more with Kazakhstan. Now, from this year, we are establishing a special fund, assistance fund for democracy, for freedom. And we will implement several projects in Kyrgyzstan, also several projects we are intending to implement in Myanmar, and also some projects maybe in North Korea and in other countries. And you know, one time we actually received that assistance from other countries. Now our turn to assist our brothers there in our region. Other issue related to the reindeer herding and the herding culture, pasture culture, you know, 40% of our people is still pursuing the nomadic way of life. And I think independence and thinking and also beauty of the Mongolian way of life is lies related with the nomadic way of life. Actually, that way of life survived for 1,000 years. Our nomads live in ger. In Russian, they call yurt. If you go there, I think that is the long-lasting structure, living structure, I think, whichever invented human being, maybe 5,000 years or 10,000 years. All those cultures actually survived for thousands of years. That actually survived communism. That actually survived, everything. And one thing I usually talk to our people, how we kept our independence. We had a big empire. After that, there were the countries tried to invade Mongolia, coming to Mongolia, and we actually still there. That was the nomadic culture. For example, our other invading forces coming to Mongolia, when they come to Mongolia, they do not find cities. We just simply move. We actually attack other countries or get some wealth, and they're trying to take revenge and coming to Mongolia invade. There is nothing to invade. We just move. And actually, that kind of culture actually saved Mongolia. Of course, today we have that border and everything and fix that. That's today a little bit challenging, but today's also world is changed. And we know that there is policy, and I really believe that China is going to be a responsible power, and Russia is going to be a responsible power. I mean that irresponsible power means that respecting even small nations, small countries' right equally. When I meet with the Chinese leadership, Hu Jintao, or Russian leadership, Medvedev and Putin, I think we are equal. There is no such thing, small president or big president. There are two heads of state and sitting together and representing their country's will and talking those issues. And I really like that. Also, I implement that kind of policy in my country. If there is minority, I think we have to listen to our minority first. We have to respect that Iranian people life and also Kazakh people life, and those are in minority in terms of the politics. Also, there are oppositions, and we tend to listen our oppositions, and because of that, there is more dynamic development in Mongolia. And I'm really appreciate your patience. Listening my long political and boring, politicians talk and listen to that. And I really appreciate that you came and for your interest. And there were many people I heard you were in Mongolia. Please come back again. Usually foreign people come when they come to Mongolia, they usually buy tickets second time, third time, fourth time. And I hope you will buy. Of course, initially you have to buy your first ticket to go to Mongolia. And before, maybe you had invitations from your friends. Now you have a presidential invitation, okay? When you go to Mongolia, say, your president invited me. And thank you very much. Yeah.
On that note, let me also take this opportunity to thank you, Mr. President, for sharing with us some very fascinating, I think, stories and developments in terms of democracy and economy, and also pointing to some of the very important challenges, the ones you mentioned on democracy, on legal reform, and also environmental concerns, as well as the strategic issues. Or I think are issues that we have a lot of common ground.
Yeah.
But we have some of those issues are shared challenges. At the same time, I think, as you pointed to, there are huge potential for learning from each other's experiences. So look forward to a good cooperation.
I think one thing I forgot to say, we really appreciate your very strong stand on the values related human rights. And Norway traditionally has that strong stand and also support you never afraid of the Russia or China. What will they say? You know, you say that. That's really helpful for us. And we know there is friend, there is country to share, and also to protect us, to give a voice to us if we are in difficult situation. And thank you for that. And thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah.
This is a book about my biking crew and horseback riding.
Horseback
I've been there 30
riding.
times.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
delighted to be in your company.
In you.